Hello YouTube, Bane666 here. So I'm guessing most of you who live outside the UK are in the same boat that I am. That is, we'd never heard of the name Caroline Flack until recent controversies. And I'll get to those recent controversies later in this video. But just in case you're like myself and had never heard of her, she was basically a B-grade celebrity who was the host of some terrible reality TV show that I wouldn't be caught dead watching.
Oh my god! Oh shit, Caroline.
The public have been voting to save one islander from each couple.
Well, if you've never heard of her before, you may be wondering at this point, why is Bane making a video about this B-grade celebrity who really isn't known outside the UK? There are two reasons. Firstly, she was arrested last December for domestic violence. And secondly, she committed suicide earlier this week. And those are the two topics I'll be covering in this video, as well as the way they've been covered in the media. Speaking of which, let's start with the domestic violence last December. Let's start with the way the Telegraph covered it.
TV presenter Caroline Flack, who hosts Science TV's Love Island, has been charged with assault after reports of a man being attacked. Flack, 40, was charged on Friday with assault by beating, the Metropolitan Police said. She was arrested after an incident at approximately 5:25 am on Thursday, December 12 after reports of a man assaulted, according to the police statement. The man was not seriously injured. According to a London ambulance service spokeswoman, two people were treated at a residential address in Islington on Thursday morning, with one taken to hospital for further treatment.
So the reason why I'm starting with the Telegraph is because it was the very first article I read about this, and I wanted to give you my first impressions. Now, there's not a lot of information here, which is perfectly understandable considering it was written the day after the particular incident. But let's go through it briefly. First of all, it says she was charged after assaulting a man. We now know that the man was her boyfriend. But the bit I found interesting was the man was not seriously injured. According to a London ambulance service spokeswoman, two people were treated at the residential address in Islington on Thursday morning, with one taken to the hospital for further treatment. Well, the fact that one of them was taken to the hospital for further treatment tells me that something fairly serious must have happened. I don't think they're going to take someone to hospital for a black eye, for example. And I actually wondered whether she had maybe assaulted him and hit him in the head with something. I'll get to what actually happened in a minute. But I did think head injury because that would be something that you'd be taken to hospital for. Now, it also doesn't say which of the two were taken to the hospital. Now, my first assumption was it had to be him because it would be unlikely that she would be injured and taken to the hospital, yet arrested for domestic violence. So to me, it was pretty clear that he was the one taken to hospital. So after reading that, I did a little bit more research and found a lot more detail, this time from the Daily Mail.
The court heard on Monday that Caroline hit her boyfriend over the head with a lamp while he was sleeping after looking at text messages which made her think he was having an affair.
So it seems I was right about the head injury, but this gets a lot worse.
Caroline and Louise were both allegedly covered in blood when police arrived at their flat in Islington, North London, on December 12, with one officer describing the chaotic scene as, like a horror movie. The ITV host was accused of going mad and smashing a glass at 5 a.m., with former tennis player Mr. Burton saying in a 999 call that she tried to kill me and called him an asshole, Highbury Corner Magistrates Court was told.
Jealous, violent, insane. Yeah, she really sounds like a great catch.
Louise was said to have been almost begging the operator to send help with his face covered in blood, while Caroline allegedly had 2 cuts to her wrist. After being taken into custody, Flack, whom the court heard was manipulative towards Burton and accused him of ruining her life, allegedly flipped over a table and had to be restrained on the ground by police.
Okay, so I think it's pretty clear why she was the one that was arrested, as opposed to the man being arrested, which happens in the majority of cases, even when the man is a victim. But she clearly totally flipped out and lost all control, which is pretty fucking scary.
Her boyfriend was allegedly left with significant head injuries and claimed in the 999 call that Flack had cracked my head open, but the court heard Flack wants to spend time with him over the Christmas and New Year period. Flack broke down into floods of tears after she entered the court lobby this morning, and was sobbing as a friend supported her. She also cried again when she sat in the dock, and pleaded not guilty to common assault.
Pleaded not guilty? Well, that's interesting, considering there's the 999 call that her boyfriend made, and for those of you in America, 999 in England is the equivalent to 911 or 000 here in Australia. We also had the two police turning up, which witnessed what was going on, so we have testimony from two police officers, and the fact that the boyfriend had to go to hospital with head injuries. That's all pretty compelling that she's guilty. So pleading innocent, that's a very ballsy move.
Paul Morris, defending, said Mr. Burton was not a victim of assault and that he did not support the prosecution.
Not a victim of assault? Really? So how exactly did he get those head injuries then, I wonder? And why exactly did he ring 999 claiming that he was a victim?
He said, Mr. Burton has never supported this prosecution. He is not the victim, as he would say, he was a witness.
He's not a victim, he's a witness. Really? A witness to what? A deranged, violent woman, maybe? Because it seems there were two police who were also witness to that. But it's not uncommon for victims in domestic abuse to not want to press charges. There are many reasons for this. They may still love their partner despite the fact that their partner is violent. They may fear that their partner is going to be violent towards them if they speak out and press charges. Or maybe this is the first time it's ever happened and they don't consider it to be too serious. My advice would be to anyone out there who's in a relationship with someone who is violent and emotionally unstable, like in this particular case, get out, don't stay in that situation, and don't defend the person. And I'm talking generally here, not just female abusers, but male, trans, gay, straight, whatever, right? I really don't care what flavour of gender or sexuality they are. If they're violent and emotionally unstable, get the fuck out of there, don't defend them, move on and don't waste your time.
But Katie Weiss, prosecuting, replied, Mr. Burton is a victim, he received significant injury to his head. Ms. Weiss added that the Crown are pursuing the case. Flack sat in the dock with her hands to her mouth.
Now, around the same time Caroline was going to court, an ex-boyfriend came forward and gave some more testimony about his experience with her.
I have repaired a broken heart and made it stronger in the process. I have had such an amazing year, it's actually made me grateful for 2018. Feeling as low as I did was the motivation I needed to rid myself of a highly toxic situation and leave on a one-way flight to Australia. I am so grateful I left and got away. Andrew went on to reference Louise Burton, who has stood by Caroline in the wake of her arrest, writing, however, I am deeply saddened to see my 2018 is looking rather similar to someone else's 2019. It appears there's yet another victim of domestic abuse being silenced by a gagging order. And the biased right-wing UK tabloids are once again covering up the facts with sob stories generated by a very intelligent PR team whose connections go right to the top of these tabloids. You may be able to silence victims, but a leopard never changes her spots. The truth will come out eventually.
Now, I should point out that we have to take testimony like this with a grain of salt, always. There's always the chance that he's lying and he's just saying this to get revenge or whatever. We've seen cases like that before. Need I mention Amber Heard? And it is possible that the violent incident that happened last December was the very first time that Caroline ever took part in any form of domestic violence. Although I somehow doubt that because it was fairly severe, and I do suspect that this was a fairly common thing for her. I should also point out that although she went to a hearing, she has not stood trial, and obviously now never will stand trial, and therefore has not been found guilty. And who knows, if she did go to trial, maybe something would have come out proving her innocence. I guess it's always possible. And innocent until proven guilty is a very, very important principle that we need to stand by. However, based on the evidence that we do have, it does seem like she was the guilty party. Now, this obviously got a lot of attention over the last couple of months because she is a celebrity, and there was also a lot of criticism of her, which unfortunately has led to her committing suicide. And as a result of that, the media and people on social media who criticised her have now come under attack. For example,
following the death of Caroline Flack on 15 February, an online petition named Caroline's Law has gone viral with nearly 500,000 signatures. The petition aims to make it a criminal offence for the British media to knowingly and relentlessly bully a person, whether they be in the public eye or not, up to the point that they take their own life.
Up to the point that they take their own life. Okay, I have a problem with this because not everyone is the same. Some people can take a huge amount of criticism and abuse and it won't bother them. Need I mention Trump? Whereas other people, a small amount of criticism or abuse is all it takes to push them over the edge. So how exactly are the newspapers, the media, or people on social media meant to determine how far someone can be pushed before they take their own life? And what exactly is relentless bullying? Who determines what relentless bullying is? Has Trump, for example, received relentless bullying? I wonder. I mean, he's received constant criticism ever since he's been in politics, right? And for the record, I'm not saying that he shouldn't be criticised. I'm just wondering how they will determine this. It seems a very weird thing, unless you say you can't criticise anyone online. Now that's not going to work, is it? So I'm not exactly sure how this petition will achieve anything. But let's continue.
The petition was set up by a user called Dennis Patton and is registered on 38degrees.org.uk. The campaign is addressed to the House of Commons and Oliver Dowden, who is the Secretary of State for Media. The campaign wishes to address how certain factions of the media sensationalize the misfortune of individuals.
Sensationalize the misfortune of the individuals. That's a very interesting phrase, isn't it? I mean, I would think that her victim was the one who was misfortunate, not the abuser. Now, you may think that they're talking about her suicide here, but that's not the case. They're talking about the media that supposedly forced her to commit suicide. So that obviously happened before she committed suicide. So when they say sensationalize the misfortune of the individual, they're essentially saying we shouldn't have been talking about her getting caught. We shouldn't have been talking about the victimizer because it might have hurt her feelings. Yeah, not sure if I agree with that.
Mainly those already in the public eye, but not always so, to the catastrophic detriment of the individual's mental welfare. The petition specifies Caroline Flack and the Jeremy Kyle show as recent examples. The description of the petition says, "We'll never truly know all of the things that were going on in Caroline's mind when she took the decision to take her life." Dennis' description also suggests sections of the media were happy to drag her life through the ringer purely in order to sell a few more papers.
Yeah, I don't doubt this is true. I don't doubt that there are many papers out there, most of them, if not all of them, who are thinking of how much money they could make. And that's what the media does. It's very common for them to have clickbait headlines or to say things which are controversial to get attention. or to straight out lie. That's unfortunately what the media does. And I would love to see a more honest media, with honest journalists living up to that journalistic ideal that we sometimes see in movies and TV shows, which doesn't seem to exist these days. But the only way to fix it is for people to become aware of this and to not reward bad media outlets by paying for their services. Censorship is not the answer. Unfortunately, what I just suggested of people not rewarding bad media outlets won't work either, because most people don't care about the truth or facts. They're just interested in gossip, saucy headlines, or opinions that support their pre-existing opinions. That's just the sad truth.
The Caroline's Law petition has reached nearly 500,000 signatures, and in a recent update they have announced they have sent off their first communication to Oliver Dowden MP. A number of other petitions have also been set up in Caroline's memory. Another named Caroline's Law seeks to have social media platforms make it illegal to abuse people online and make it a requirement for people creating social media accounts to provide an ID to prove who they are and their age.
Illegal to abuse people online. Okay, this is scary because who exactly determines what is abuse? What is the line between criticism and abuse, and who decides what that is and where that line is? Somehow I don't think this law is going to be applied evenly. I suspect that some people will get a free pass while others will be silenced. Now, if the law did pass and it was applied evenly to everyone, I'm sure there's going to be unforeseen consequences that the people proposing this law haven't thought of. Let me give you a couple of examples. Let's say there's a white supremacist who's a member of the KKK and he's changed his name to Adolf Hitler Jr. And he's written numerous books about how blacks and Jews are destroying America or whatever, right? And let's say he goes on a TV show or a radio show or whatever, and he spends half an hour talking about his racist, bigoted views. Now, under normal circumstances, this would cause a lot of controversy. There would be people commenting on social media and through media outlets. But should that be considered abuse? If the answer is yes, then that means that someone like that can't be criticised. However, if it's not considered abuse because he's a bad person, then how is that any different than Caroline Flack, who in all likelihood was a domestic abuser? Surely domestic abusers should be criticised, right? Or do they get a free pass when they're female? Let me give you another example. Let's say there's a teacher and it comes out that this particular teacher is a pedophile. Should people be able to express their opinions online? Should the media be able to run articles about this particular person? Or should they be silenced because it might hurt the feelings of that particular person? There is a good reason that the media should be given a great deal of freedom when it comes to free speech. Now, sure, it is abused by certain factions of the media all the fucking time. I don't doubt that for a second. That's an unfortunate consequence of free speech. But it's far better than the alternative, which is censorship, or selective censorship, which I'm guessing is what they're proposing here.
A third petition created by Hollyoaks actress Steph Davis seeks to create new laws around safeguarding celebrities and people in the public eye. Her campaign wishes to stop the publishing of false information, releasing revenge porn, and invading privacy and sharing private information that is detrimental to the celebrity.
I thought revenge porn was already illegal. But anyway, let's say this particular law proposed by this particular celebrity went through. Would that protect people like Paul Elam and Cassie J from the likes of Dave Futrell and takedown MRAs on Twitter? Or any of the other trash media which have spread lies about them? What about all the media outlets that posted stories about Johnny Depp and the allegations made towards him by Amber Heard? Should those have been published? Should they have been able to report on the news? Or should that have been censored because Johnny Depp is in the public eye? It's a very slippery slope here. Now, as I said earlier, I don't like dishonest media outlets, and unfortunately most of them are. And I think people like Dave Futrell and Takedown MRAs are absolute fucking scumbags. They're dishonest fucking scumbags. They're propagandists and fucking liars. But if you silence them, you weaken free speech for everyone, including us. And unfortunately, a consequence of having free speech is that there are people who will abuse it. I would prefer that to the alternative of not having free speech at all. Now, just to finish off, I want to look at one more article, and this one is by Louise O'Neill, who is a self-described feminist, and she's written an article called "To Solely Blame Tabloids for Caroline Flack's Death Absolves the Rest of Us of Responsibility." Now, I somewhat agree with that. If we didn't buy tabloid newspapers, or, as I said before, reward media outlets which spread lies, they'd go out of business, or they would stop telling lies. We are responsible for that. Unfortunately, I don't see most people changing. Anyway, she goes on to say,
Caroline Flack died by suicide last Saturday. She was 40 years of age. She had been a tabloid fixture for the last decade, and the coverage was often harsh. She wasn't perfect. Her decision to date Harry Styles when he was 17 and she was 31 left many uneasy, and the allegations of domestic abuse after the police were called to her home in December were grave, but the double standards that women are subjected to in all walks of life, but especially in the public eye, soon became clear.
Yeah, you heard that right. She's going to make the argument that somehow Caroline Flack was treated more harshly by the evil media because that's the way all women are treated, more harshly by the evil media. We are living in a patriarchy after all, right? The thing is, feminists like this particular one are blind to the way men are treated. Not just online, not just by the media, but in general. They have no concept of the way men are treated. They're totally blind to it. They can't see it. They can't understand it. They can't empathize with it. And they assume that only bad things happen to women. That's the only thing they're capable of seeing. It's amazing. It really is amazing.
If the genders were reversed, a man would be lambasted for that. People cried, as if a famous man would be called a pedophile, like Caroline was, for consistently dating women 20 years younger than him.
Okay, so the reason why she was referred to as a pedophile wasn't because she was dating people 20 years younger than her, but because she was dating someone under 18, a 17-year-old. Now, to be perfectly clear, someone who's dating a 17-year-old is not a pedophile. Pedophiles are attracted to children who are prepubescent. A 17-year-old is obviously not prepubescent. So definitely not a pedophile, although pedophile is often a term used more broadly, which I think we can argue is why it's being used here. But I would argue the reason why she was dating a 17-year-old and consistently dated people younger than herself was because they were easier to control and manipulate. We saw in the court case, which I covered earlier, where she was described as manipulative, and she was clearly emotionally unstable and insecure and controlling, not to mention violent. She actually seems to fit the stereotype of male domestic abusers put out by feminists all the time. You know, the controlling man who manipulates and controls and physically and emotionally beats down his female partner. Yeah, based on the evidence we have, she seems to have fit that fairly nicely. That's why I think she was dating a 17-year-old. But, you know, I could be wrong. Maybe they just had a special connection or something. Who knows? As for a famous male in his 30s dating a 17-year-old female, yeah, the media's going to comment on that. Don't doubt that for a second. As well as other people in, you know, social media gossiping and commenting, and at very least be called a dirty old man, if not a pedophile. There is no way he would get a free pass.
There was an important conversation to be had about how male victims of domestic violence are treated in our society.
I fully agree. We should be having a conversation about female abusers and male victims. But we're not now, are we? Because the female abuser has been shifted into the female victim slot. What a surprise.
How they can be ridiculed and disbelieved, but the pillorying of Flack, the lurid headlines, the photographs from inside her home splashed across the front pages of the tabloids, the relentless trolling, was extraordinary.
Ah, yes, of course, because nothing like that would ever happen to a male in the Me Too era, would it? No, of course not. This type of thing only happens to women, except for, all the men that it's happened to as well. For example, Armando Vega, who is a Mexican rocker, who was anonymously accused on Twitter of sexually harassing someone, committed suicide. I'm sure the Me Too movement and the media had absolutely nothing to do with that. Right, Louise? And Armando Vega is not the only suicide due to Me Too. There have been numerous. Now, considering the arguments that feminist Louise is making in this particular article, you might think that she was against the Me Too movement, right? Because, she doesn't want people harassed in the media or on social media. That's wrong. We can't treat people that way. What if they hurt themselves? What if they're mentally ill? What about their feelings and their mental health situation? We have to take all that into account. So clearly, Louise O'Neill would have to be against the Me Too movement, right? Well, of course not, because she's a feminist, and obviously that means she's a hypocrite. Yes, the same person making these arguments to protect the feelings and emotions and the mental health of Caroline Flack is a huge supporter of Me Too, because it only matters when it's done to women, right, Louise? Men being falsely accused on social media, their mental health, their reputations, losing work, and possibly even committing suicide, none of that really matters, does it? Because they're men. And Louise has also come out and attacked Johnny Depp because of the accusations made against him on social media, the now proven false accusations. Louise wrote an article called "Powerful Men Accused of Crimes Against Women Should Fail at the Box Office." Because an accusation should destroy someone's career, right, Louise? She says at the end of the article, "How powerful would it be to see a movie starring Affleck or Mel Gibson or Johnny Depp or any of the other countless immensely powerful men accused of heinous crimes against women?" That's the main part, isn't it? Against women. Fail miserably at the box office due to a conscious boycott. Yes, because an accusation on Twitter should destroy someone's career, shouldn't it, Louise? It seems like you are in favour of harassment on social media, doesn't it?
People claimed she was getting off easier because of her sex, as if male abusers were regularly held accountable for their actions.
Yeah, the thing is, Louise, not only are male abusers held accountable for their actions, but innocent men who are wrongly accused are often held accountable for actions they didn't even fucking do. Need I mention Johnny Depp? I think you might be familiar with that name since you wrote an article about him, right? And of course, Louise, being the well-informed feminist that she is, like most feminists, clearly doesn't know about the sentencing gap, where women routinely get lighter sentences, if they get sentenced at all, for the exact same crimes committed by men. And that's across the board, not just domestic abuse, where a woman is lucky to be arrested, let alone stand trial.
As if we don't live in a world where the police were called to the house of a prime minister because of concerns for his girlfriend's safety and the incident was spun as a liberal agenda to harm the man's reputation, soon forgotten from the public consciousness.
Okay, so I'm not going to comment on that particular case because that's the first I've ever heard of it.
Since Flack's death, there has been an outcry, slamming the tabloids for the part they played in this tragedy. And yes, there has to be a reckoning with the way which the media treats people in the public eye, particularly women.
Particularly women? Well, that's an interesting interpretation. Let me ask you a couple of simple questions, Louise. The first one is, which gender is targeted more often by the Me Too movement? I'll give you a minute to think about that one. The second question is, which gender has committed suicide more often because of the Me Too movement? Very difficult questions, aren't they?
They cannot be allowed to continue to treat these figures as if they're gladiators, fighting to the death for our amusement. But to solely blame the tabloids absolves the rest of us of any responsibility.
Exactly right, Louise. And that would include the Me Too movement, wouldn't it? Oh, sorry, I forgot. They get a free pass because they attack men, and that's perfectly acceptable. Doesn't matter if men are killing themselves, does it, Louise?
Believe it or not, you make perfect sense to me. I should hang. I'm a hypocrite. I ask for sincerity and I lie. I denounce the system as I embrace it. I want money and power and prestige. I want ratings and success. I don't give a damn about you or the world. That's the truth. For this, I could say I'm sorry, but I won't. Why should I? I mean, who the hell are you anyways, you audience? You're on me every night like a pack of wolves because you can't stand facing what you are and what you've made. Yes, the world is a terrible place. Yes, cancer and garbage disposals will get you. Yes, a war is coming. Yes, the world is shut to hell and you're all goners. Everything's screwed up and you like it that way, don't you? You're fascinated by the gory details. You're mesmerized by your own fear. You revel in floods, car accidents, unstoppable diseases. You're happiest when others are in pain. That's where I come in, isn't it? I'm here to lead you by the hand through the dark forest of your own hatred and anger and humiliation. I'm providing a public service. You're so scared. You're like a little child under the covers. You're afraid of the boogeyman, but you can't live without him. Your fear, your own lives have become your entertainment. Next month, millions of people are going to be listening to this show, and you have nothing to talk about. Marvelous technology is at our disposal. And instead of reaching up to new heights, we're trying to see how far down we can go. How deep into the muck we can immerse ourselves. What do you want to talk about, Baseball scores? Your pet? Orgasms? You're pathetic. I despise each and every one of you. You got nothing. Absolutely nothing. No brains, no power, no future, no hope, no God. The only thing you believe in is me. What are if you don't have me? I'm not afraid, see? I come in here every night, I make my case, I make my point, I say what I believe in. I tell you what you are. I have to, I have no choice. You frighten me. I come in here every night, I tear into you, I abuse you, I insult you, and just keep coming back for more. What's wrong with you? Why do you keep calling? I don't want to hear anymore. Stop talking. Go away. Bunch of yellow-bellied, spineless, bigoted, quivering, drunken, insomniatic, paranoid, disgusting, perverted, voyeuristic little obscene phone callers. That's what you are. Well, to hell with you. I don't need your fear and your stupidity. You don't get it. It's wasted on you. Pearls before swine. If one person out there had any idea what I'm talking about, Fred, you're on Night Talk.
Yes. You see, Barry, I know it's depressing that so many people don't understand that you're just joking.
Jackie, you're on Night Talk.
Hello. I've been listening for years, and I find you a warm and intelligent...
Arnold.
What you were saying before about loneliness, I'm an electrical engineer.
Lucy.
Barry, my mother is from Waco, and she wants to know if you went to high school with...
Larry.
Why do people insist on calling homosexuals normal?
Ralph.
I'm in my house. I'm at home. Which is where you should be, Barry. Hey, I'm not far away. You could come over if you want. We're the same kind of people. I have beer, soup. I'm here. Come over later. I'll wait.
Barry, there's 60 seconds left in the show. This is dead air, Barry. Dead air.
I guess we're stuck with each other.
Ein Haufen Zombies um uns herum und die Nächte werden länger. Für kurz 2 Tage noch Munition, danach dann nur noch unsere Hände. Woher sie kommen, wohin sie gehen, darüber denken wir nicht nach. Ein neuer Anfang, ein altes Problem, wer schickt hier wen ins Grab? Wir bleiben hier, wir haben die Macht, wir geben niemals auf. Schließ dich uns an, sei ein Held, wir halten stand, um jeden Preis. Festung Europa, die letzte